The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
Welcome to Persistence Pays. I'm your host, Lori Rowdnask. On today's show, we're going to be talking about persistence in the arts. And my first guest is Matthew Willson, and he is a producer, a filmmaker, an actor, and many other things on top of all of that. So welcome to the show, Matthew, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you have a very interesting career background, and making a film here in Hamilton was one of your highlights. Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about the film Skinning the Cats that you
Skinning the Cat was originally a Fringe play. We did that here in Hamilton at the Fringe Festival. And the Fringe Festival doesn't bring a whole big audience, but it allows artists and writers and the actors and producers to expose new works. Generally, they're new works. And we did Skinning the Cat. It's a two-hander, and it takes place in Hamilton. And audiences liked it, but they said, you know, there's something more here. This could be an independent film, or certainly a film. So we didn't think much of it, but people kept saying, you know, that would be a clever little movie. You could do that pretty effectively and inexpensively. So, long story short, we shot it as a film. We actually shot 3 years ago this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when you say a two-hander, maybe tell our audience what a two-hander means.
Well, two-hander is primarily just two actors. Okay. Now on stage, if you have a two-hander, it's really just two people. But in film, there's a little bit of forgiveness there. You can have a two-hander, but you can still have, you know, the odd little part. Like we have just a couple of people, just in a couple small scenes. But 98% of our film, Skinning the Cat, is just two people, just in one room. So it's really character-driven, and it's really dialogue-driven. It's fast dialogue. It's quick-paced. Yeah, it's lots of tension, thriller.
Yeah, it's a drama thriller. Mm-hmm. Now, you acted in it as well as produced it.
Right. I had a hard time finding a producer, and I wanted to make the film pretty bad. So I have a business. I have a gravel pit, so I wasn't new to you know, running something. So I said, well, yeah, we can do this. So, I mean, when you make a film, granted, it's a big project, no matter what anybody says. Making a movie, whether it's a short movie, a documentary, an animated piece, a feature film, it's a lot of work, especially whoever's the boss, whoever's in charge. And that was, in this case, it was me. And it was a tremendous amount of work. But all the work was basically done within about a year. So you work really hard for about a year, and for the most part, once your pre-production, your production, and your post-production is done, that's it. It's not like it's an ongoing thing for 8 years.
Right. And once it came out, how did that feel?
Well, it was good to be having all that work done. Yeah, it was great. Making a film was great. I would love to make more. I would like to be a filmmaker that works all the time. And I think that in Canada, there's a lot of room for independent movies to be made. And when I say a lot of room, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity. But I think people, you know, every young actor or every old actor has been involved in independent movies. Most independent movies, they don't even get started. They certainly don't get finished. And getting an independent movie started and completed and finished and out there to the public, that's a huge deal.
It takes a lot of persistence.
It takes a lot of persistence. It takes nothing but persistence. I come from a family where we have several different companies and businesses, and we have for a long time. And being in the movie business it's hard. It's a hard road. There is, in some degrees, there's a lot of support in the community, and in other ways, there's really not much support. But I would love to make more movies, and I think that collectively, I think there's so much talent. I think there's wonderful scripts out there. They just have to come together. But I love when people call me and say, I'd like you to be involved in producing for me, or love you to be involved in acting in it. And I, you know, this day and age, young actors or any actor, I keep saying young, I'm not young anymore, but they're not getting any younger. When people want to work, they have to find and make the opportunities for themselves.
Right.
They're not coming. They're not going to come to you. You have to go out and find your own opportunities.
So now you received some awards for your film, and tell us a little bit about some of the awards that you received.
Well, we probably entered, I'd say we probably entered 25 film festivals. And a lot of times people say, you know, get that film out to as many festivals as you can. And you can, but it's quite expensive. You know, whether it's $100 or you know, $200 or $40, it's a lot of money to consider. You could be putting out to film festivals all day, every day, and never keep up to them.
Right.
So we entered about 25 film festivals. Out of that 25, we were allowed into about 12 or 13, I forget. And out of the 12 or 13, we probably won 7 awards for the writing, the production or the movie as a whole, some of the performances. Yeah, like we screened in New Zealand, we screened in a couple places in Canada. We've been shown in the U.S. and we've been shown in London, England, and we've had awards from you know, Canada, the U.S., and overseas.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, how do you see this movie?
I mean, the general public. I think
Yes.
my view on it. People can see it at filmbinder.com.
Okay, great.
Filmbinder.com. Skinning the cat.
Okay, great. So what did you learn from that experience of producing? If you had to do it again, what were some of your life lessons?
Don't use your own money. That's it.
Period.
That's the only suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a learning curve. I mean, it's business. So at the end of the day, it's art and business come together. That can be tricky, to have art and business mixing. But if you can get your own money, if you can get the money raised, that's great. But fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't have that. I did use my own money, which is great because I didn't have somebody trying to get the money back. But in the same token, you know, that was all mine. I didn't get the money from a financer or something.
So you self-funded it. So you put yourself at risk.
Yeah.
Basically. So, you know what? Well, good for you for stepping out and doing that. Now, you have a lot of other things you've done in the community, and commercials you've been in, films you've been in, shows. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Well, I do mostly theater work. I love the theater. I'm not a religious person. I'm not very spiritual, but I love the theater. I feel safe there. I feel at home there. I like being around the other actors. I like the rehearsals. I like the pretending. I like the make-believe. So I really have, that's what I would love to be doing all the time, is live theater. That's not totally realistic, and there's not very much money in theater, and I mean there's not very much money at all in live theater on a consistent basis. But I've done a lot of theater in this area, Hamilton, the greater Hamilton area, and met some wonderful friends. They're more like family now. And I do a lot of commercials, voiceovers. I used to do some modeling. I don't think that ship is long sailed. And yeah, lots of commercials, lots of voiceover work, live theater. Yeah, try to stay active, try to stay busy.
Yeah. What's your favorite? What is your favorite post that you've had?
Well, I don't know. That's tough. I don't know. There's been certain aspects of different things, different productions, different roles for different reasons. I was in a great production of Waiting for Godot, and I was in a great production of 12 Angry Men just a couple years ago. It's hard. I've done a lot of plays, so you kind of lose track after a while in a way, but in other sense, there's always little things that, you know, maybe you met a good friend and you know, you liked the show because of that. Yeah, that's tough to answer.
So, you know, when you go into character, is it great? Is that a great experience because you get to really play someone else? It's like...
Well, I like it. I like the escape.
Yeah.
I like the escape of getting involved with a character. It's tough if you're just on stage and then you're off, and then you're on stage and then you're off. It's great when you can go out and you can be, you know, in the zone and stay there for the next hour. That's wonderful. It's really like just you're stepping out outside yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what's next? What are your projects, or what are your dreams? What are your aspirations for the future?
I'm directing a play right now in Paris. I live in Paris, and I'm directing a Norm Foster show. You know, Norm Foster from the Hamilton area here. Yeah. So I'm directing a Norm Foster play, and after that, I would really like to start looking at either another film written by another playwright from the Hamilton area, Kevin Land, or I would like to look at doing a one-man play, which is that wouldn't take place for another 9 months or so by the time pre-production and rehearsal and stuff is set up. Yeah.
Great. So we and people have seen you in Hamilton. You've done a lot of plays, a lot of work in Hamilton, and I love live theater. I love going to live theater.
You do?
I do. I love it.
Well, you should get out and see some more.
I know. I really do love going to live theater. It's probably, if I have to say, one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
is to go to the theater, and I'm always amazed by the actors.
There's so many people that I talk to, and they say they either want to get involved, or you know, they're actors and they're not working very much, or they're young actors and they want to work. And I say, go to live theater.
Yeah.
Go to live theater, see as much as you can. If you're a hockey player, you would go to the hockey rink all the time.
To watch.
Yeah, and so many actors don't. They will maybe watch a lot of movies, but I think that the theater actor, the theater director, being involved in that moment, that's what can eventually make the better performer and the better director, I think, but I'm obviously quite biased if you haven't noticed.
Well, I think it's a great way to get out to have a beautiful night, and I love to see love to see live acting. I take my kids. As a family, we really love it.
Absolutely.
So, thank you for being here, Matt, and I wish you continued success in your acting career and all the other things that you do. And thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. And once again, it's Skinning the Cat at filmbinder.com.
Perfect.
And you can follow me on Twitter at MattyBoy5150.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So stay tuned. We're going to be back after the break with the two ladies that are going to talk about art therapy. We'll see you then.
Thanks very much.
And welcome back. In the studio, I have two art therapists, and I'm really excited to talk about what you're doing in the community with art therapy. And I have Tricia Schinkel here and Elva Palo. So thanks for both being here. Thank you. And art therapy, I mean, I wore this jacket because it kind of reminded me of art, and that someone painted it. And I know in talking with Elva, art therapy is really making a groundbreaking, and especially here in Hamilton, you've been really working to get a core group of art therapists together to talk about art therapy and how and what it can do for people. So Elva, what is art therapy?
I'm glad you asked. We look in the fields of art and psychology, and what we end up coming with are professionally trained people in psychotherapy that use art as a way of expressing, helping people to express themselves, so to process emotions and to work through some life issues. Basically, that's what it is, and you don't have to be an artist in order to be able to create and have any kind of self-expression.
Okay, and so how long has your group been going, Trish?
We started in January of last year, so it's been just over a year. We met at a Canadian Art Therapy Association conference in Niagara Falls in November of 2011, and we collaborated with a bunch of other art therapists in the Hamilton area to get a group together that could kind of support each other as art therapists and work on creating awareness of what art therapy is and how we can work together and collaborate with other professionals in the Hamilton area to service different people with different needs through art therapy.
Okay, so, great. And your organization that you're part of is called HEART?
Yes.
So you could maybe say what that is? art?
It's the Hamilton Art Therapy Group.
Right.
Yeah. So we have a Facebook page that you can look up, and there's information about a little bit more detail about what art therapy is, different links to conferences, training, workshop, that kind of thing. So.
And do you offer workshops for the public to come in and work on their art therapy?
We haven't yet, but as a group we each have different specialties. We each work in a different area, and our long-term goal is to create a way that people can access art therapy through our group for varying needs. So.
And you're right. I mean, I joined this particular group because it seemed to me we needed a collective voice. Otherwise, we sometimes feel like we're working in our own silo, either at some agency or I work at an agency for those living with chronic illness, cancer. And it just seemed that we need a collective voice. So when we're out there together, people understand that it's just not one individual person doing something a little bit different. It's actually a big profession.
Mm-hmm. And what changes have you seen in people from doing art therapy? What are the benefits?
Actually, there are several for everybody on a, what we call a normal neurotic, somebody that would just feel perhaps anxiety, stress, maybe needing to know how to cope a little better with certain life issues like divorce or loss in their lives. And these are areas that are covered by art therapists regularly. But then we also work with other more serious disorders too, such as eating disorders, bipolar disorder, addictions issues, and post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay, great. Now, Trish, you brought in one of your clients' pieces of art, which you've had permission from them to show, so I want to make sure that's clear. And if you can maybe just talk about what this picture is about, and then we'll just give an example of what art therapy is.
Yeah, I work for an agency that puts kids and teens in foster homes and group homes, and I work individual therapy with them, so processing family issues, emotions, different things like that. So this particular image is like a body image. So this client was dealing with all the anger, and so in the image there are just different places in her body where she feels different things. For example, in her stomach there's like a tornado, so that's where she feels a lot of her anger bubbling up. There's fire in her chest, so there's question marks in her head where she feels confused. The tears are of frustration and sadness. And then there's also different coping mechanisms that she used. So the little Z's here is sleeping. Sleeping was a coping mechanism for her, so a way that she would help calm herself. Mm-hmm. And also the music notes in the arms. She used music to help bring her anger and frustration level down. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Now, how long would it take for someone to create this piece of art?
They can take as long as they want or need, but the nice thing about art is that you don't have to use words. A lot of times art it speaks for itself, and there's sometimes people look at an image and they see something, but only the artist actually knows what it's really about, and that's where the therapeutic process helps with it, so we can help draw out different emotions and feelings and help people process what's going on beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. So.
Oh, that's great. Now, how old was the person that did this?
About 15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. And Elva, you have an example of some art therapy from someone that was quite a bit older.
Right. This person was well into her late 80s. And I also work, as Tricia was saying, that usually a 50-minute session with a person, and there's always an opportunity to work with any materials that are on hand. And I happened to have some clay, so she was rolling out the clay. I was helping her. She had the effects of stroke and some blindness, so she was dealing with physical issues as a result of stroke. But as she was rolling out the clay and then started to coil and create this little pot, I asked her what she might call it, and she said, "It's a basket for Moses." And then a little while later, as we had more of a discussion, she said that she had never told anyone this, but at age 17 she had given up a child for adoption. So it was an interesting way for her to create something that had significance and brought to light, and something that had happened decades ago to her.
And she'd never talked about it?
Never talked about it. Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And then this one here,
Yeah, also a clay piece, an elderly man close to 90, and he had lived in the prairies, and when he first made it, he just had done the clay drawing in it and said, this is the prairies, and it's a little field mouse running along. Sometimes it's very much a self-reflection of how someone actually feels. The next week, once he had painted it, he said, I see that as the Rock of Gibraltar. And I said, do you sort of feel like that yourself today? He says, yeah, I feel a lot stronger today. So it was interesting how that metaphor actually spoke to a reflection of how he was feeling in the moment.
Yeah, and we have a couple of pictures that you brought as well, and journaling is very much a part of the healing process as well. And I am a big journaler and teach that in business as well, about journaling and how important it is to get your feelings written down and have a private place, private book that is just for you to see. And so you also talk about journaling and drawing.
Yes, I find that it's an excellent way for people to actually know how to process and talk about things again in a way that they can look at later, and maybe something else will come up for them when you talk about journaling. I know that this particular lady, when you talk about persistence, it was after about 27 sessions of seeing her that she finally decided she would try some watercolor, and she created a tree and talked about her loss of a sibling, and later also drew a door.
The same woman?
The same woman,
okay.
Yeah, later drew a door.
So tell me about the tree. What was the tree?
The tree is a watercolor done very spontaneously, and she said that with the leaves falling, it felt to her like teardrops falling, and then I said, what would you call this? And she said, this is my sibling who I had lost, and I'm just thinking about him today. And also later in life, she talked about how hard it was to live with a spouse who was living with Alzheimer's dementia. So I gave her a directive. It's sort of an invitation. I'll say, why don't you draw a door? And when she drew the door, it somehow always relates back to something for someone, even if you give them that directive. And again, she started to draw, which was great. And the drawing that she had was of her front door, and very worried about her husband always leaving, and her not knowing or realizing it. So the session talked about validating her concerns and fears, and she said, I don't think anybody in my family really knew how fearful I was and how much work it was to make sure that I could keep him safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and she probably didn't really even realize it until she drew the picture.
That's true. Yes, that's often the situation where there's a realization after.
Once she looked at it and saw him running out the front door, it's really interesting that that's what she would have drawn.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some other great things that you've seen as a witness to art therapy?
Oh, there's so many.
I know sorry Tricia, but one that comes to mind after 9/11 had happened. A number of art therapists were flown in to New York to help people process some of the losses that had happened. So there were lots of things that were done. Even at the Pentagon, they have art therapists there that help the children in particular, and they would do pieces of artwork because they just couldn't talk. Yeah. And there were some giant murals that were done on the sidewalks. It allowed people an opportunity to just express whatever they were feeling inside and have a sense of sort of non-aloneness. It was about being able to say that I feel this with you, and it brought people together, being able to do that. In hospitals too, they had little tiny bracelets that people could make just to sort of feel connected to each other, during a time of great shock and loss. So that was one.
And art, we take it as a mandatory credit in grade 9, and then you may not ever pick it up again. And so it is a way of expressing. I do a lot of vision board workshops, and people are cutting and pasting and gluing, and they're like, Lori, I haven't done this since I was I feel like I'm in kindergarten again. But at the beginning they kind of go, oh, and then by the end, I did a workshop last night, and by the end you couldn't hear anybody talk because everybody was talking so much because they were so excited about what they created. So again, it's just we all have that inside us, it's just bringing it out.
Absolutely.
And I think art therapy really is a form of expression and really helping you to deal with your feelings.
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So.
And you're right, you don't have to be an artist to do it. We use often magazine images that are cut out and ready-made, found objects, and get people to put things together and then just say, what do you notice?
Yeah.
What do you notice is in your picture? And some might say, you know, I notice there's a lot of fun in there. I guess I'm not getting any fun in my life right now. This is what I think I need. So it could be as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom about art therapy and starting a group in Hamilton to help people. So thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next week on Persistence Pays. Thanks for being here.